The movie opens in a cramped, dimly lit storeroom. 3 men stand in the middle of the clutter, their faces half-shadowed. Parker, the one in charge, with frustration in his voice. He glares at Knox, a nervous-looking man who's clearly just made a mistake. Parker scolds Knox harshly for being stupid and messing things up. Knox tries to defend himself, but Parker cuts him off, his anger clear. After a final warning from Parker, the men end their conversation, pull scarves over their faces, and head out. The tension is thick, but their goal is clear: they're about to rob the place where horse betting money is stored. In the corner, Zin is already at work, cutting through the vault door. Parker watches closely, keeping everyone in line as the heist begins to unfold. Parker, calm but intimidating, corners the supervisor and makes him an offer: punch Knox in front of his girlfriend to look like a hero, and he'll let him open the vault without trouble. The supervisor hesitates, throws a punch, but his girlfriend just sits there, unimpressed, watching the whole act fall flat as Parker smirks. Meanwhile, outside, one of the employees arrives with his wife and young son. As he steps out of the car, he senses something suspicious inside the building. His wife, worried, tries to call the police, but he stops her. He has a different plan. He wants to rob the robbers. He quietly loads his gun and waits near the entrance. Moments later, Parker and his team rush out of the establishment, carrying bags full of cash. Without warning, the employee opens fire. Knox is killed instantly, and another robber is badly injured. Amid the chaos, the employee grabs one of the money bags and runs. Parker, enraged, chases him through the nearby horse racing track, where a race is in full swing. The crowd screams and scatters as bullets fly and horses panic. The chase ends violently when Parker corners the man and kills him, reclaiming the stolen bag. Afterward, Parker tosses $10,000 to the man's terrified wife, telling her to take the money and leave. Then, without looking back, he flees the scene with his remaining crew as sirens echo in the distance. They finally reach their hideout, a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Zin immediately tends to the wounded man, patching him up while the others count the cash. The tension slowly fades into excitement. They've pulled off a massive heist, stealing over $400 million. Laughter fills the room as they celebrate their success. Parker excuses himself and heads to the bathroom to clean up. In the main room, Zin begins changing her clothes in front of everyone, acting casual and relaxed. The others barely pay attention, caught up in their victory. Then, without warning, Zin reaches for her gun. In a single, swift motion, she opens fire, shooting everyone around her. The room erupts in chaos, screams, and gunfire. Parker, hearing the shots, rushes out but is hit by a stray bullet. Bleeding and dazed, he manages to escape through the back door. He stumbles outside, chased by the sound of Zin's gunfire, and falls into a nearby river. The current drags him away, leaving Zin standing alone with the stolen fortune. The scene cuts to a quiet office where Kincaid and Lozini are having a tense conversation about the recent robbery. Papers and police reports are spread across the desk. Kincaid, calm but serious, mentions that one of the bystanders at the horse racing track might have seen Parker, though the witness isn't completely sure. Lozini freezes for a moment, clearly unsettled by the name. His expression shifts from curiosity to concern, hinting at an old history between him and Parker. He tells Kincaid there's nothing to worry about, as long as Parker stays out of New York. But beneath his composed voice, there's a flicker of fear, suggesting that if Parker ever returns, things could get very personal. Meanwhile, Parker wakes up in a dimly lit motel room, still weak and bruised from his wounds. A concerned maid suggests he rest, but he insists on going to room 12. The maid warns him that it's already occupied, but Parker ignores her. Moments later, he bursts into room 12, interrupting a random couple mid-intimacy. The man bolts outside, completely naked, while the woman hides in the bathroom, terrified. Parker calmly examines the room and begins breaking through a section of the wall. Inside, he uncovers a hidden stash, guns, money, and important documents he had secretly stored there earlier. With his haul secured, Parker slips into the man's pants to cover himself and quietly leaves the motel. Parker meets Grace Webb, wife of Philly Webb murdered by Zin. He sits across from her, careful and low-key, asking if she knows anything that could lead to Zin. Grace swallows and gives him a name: Reggie Riley from New Jersey. Then her grief hardens into fury. She begs Parker for revenge for her husband, voice shaking, kill Zin. Parker listens. He doesn't promise anything, but the idea settles in his face like a shadow, a new lead and a personal motive wrapped together. He leaves the diner with Reggie's name burned into his mind, the taste of vengeance and opportunity both sharp and dangerous. The scene cuts to Alan Grofield, who's busy managing a small theater show. He steps outside to take the call. It's Parker. Grofield's tone shifts immediately, calm, respectful, a hint of tension. Parker wastes no time with small talk and asks straight out about Reggie Riley. Grofield hesitates, glancing back toward the stage, then tells Parker that Riley operates out of New Jersey. Reggie Riley walks out of a club with 2 mistresses, laughing and drunk. He gets into his car, only to find Parker behind the wheel. Before he can react, Parker asks him about Zin. Suddenly, gunfire erupts as Zin's men ambush them. Bullets shatter the windows. Reggie is hit and killed instantly. Parker fights back, shooting his way out and managing to capture one of the attackers, forcing him to lead the way to Zin. Zin meets with Bosco to discuss plans. Bosco lays out his scheme. Parker arrives, forces Zin at gunpoint and demands money, then, in the chaos, shoots Bosco. Zin erupts, furious, saying she'd invested all the robbery money into the operation. Under pressure, she reveals the full plan. 5 months earlier, a 15th century shipwreck called the Lady of Arintero, a trove worth billions, was discovered. Corrupt President de La Paz intends to display the treasure at the UN, then stage its theft himself, play the victim, and bankrupt the country. Zin's plan is to steal the treasure first, claiming she's doing it to help the nation. The scene cuts to Kincaid and Lozini discussing the treasure deal. Kincaid brings up that Bosco has gone missing, which immediately angers Lozini. Slamming his hand on the table, Lozini orders Kincaid to find Bosco at any cost. It's clear they have no idea Bosco is already dead, and that he was secretly planning with Zin to rob them. Parker and Alan Grofield meet Zin, who leads them to a warehouse and introduces them to Colonel Ortiz. Tension rises as Parker insists on taking charge. Ortiz reveals he's prepared a replica of the Lady of Arintero and outlines a plan to steal the real treasure from the UN and swap it with the replica. Parker rejects the UN heist as too risky and reveals his alternative. Instead of hitting the UN, they'll rob the robbers, steal from the crew the President de La Paz is using to stage the theft. After the meeting, as Parker and Grofield head out of the warehouse, one of Colonel Ortiz's men, Mateo, blocks their path. He steps close to Parker, his tone cold and threatening, warning him to stay away from Zin and not to interfere with her. Parker stares back without a word, then walks past him, unfazed, leaving Mateo glaring behind. While driving back, Alan asks Parker who the robbers placed by de La Paz are. Parker answers, "It's the outfit, Lozini." Alan nods slowly, realizing they're about to go up against one of the most powerful crime syndicates around. Parker, Alan, and Zin arrive at the hotel where Bosco's boyfriend is staying. They meet him and break the news that Bosco is dead. Shocked, the man panics and starts crying. Parker asks about the papers containing Bosco's plans, and the boyfriend says they're in his room upstairs. Before they can move, Lozini's men burst into the hotel, guns blazing. The boyfriend is hit in the crossfire as Parker, Zin, and Alan dive for cover. A fierce gunfight erupts. Parker and Zin take down the attackers one by one. After the shootout, Parker rushes to the boyfriend's room and begins searching for the papers. Just then, Kincaid enters, also looking for Bosco. The two clash violently, furniture shatters, and the fight spills toward the window. In the struggle, Kincaid falls out and gets seriously injured. Parker snatches the papers, stuffs them into his jacket, and leaves the scene before more of Lozini's men arrive. Lozini visits Kincaid, who lies injured in a bed. Kincaid weakly tells him he didn't find Bosco but instead ran into Parker. Lozini's expression darkens. He clenches his jaw, pacing by the bedside. Frustration boils over as he realizes Parker's involvement. Clearly angered, Lozini mutters that Parker's return changes everything, and it's bad news for everyone. The scene shifts to a meeting of Parker's crew: Stan De Vera, Brenda, Ed Mackey, Colonel Ortiz, Zin, and Parker himself. They gather around a table covered with maps and blueprints. Zin looks around and asks, "Where are Mateo and Tomas?" Parker answers coldly, "They're out. I don't trust them." The room falls silent for a moment, everyone sensing the tension and Parker's firm control over the operation. Parker stands over the map and briefs the mission. He points to the General Assembly basement, That's where the treasure is. He says Lozini's outfit will steal it within 24 hours and will use the abandoned train line to move the loot to the station. Parker explains it doesn't matter how the outfit takes the treasure, once they have it they'll load it onto the automated train. That's where Bosco's plan comes in. Ed, Mackie and Brenda will pose as train station employees to get into the control station. They get in and increase the train's speed. Alan's job is to dismantle the automatic braking system and Stan has to drive the getaway van. The train, forced to overspeed, will derail at Aharev Curve. The crew will grab the loot and get away. Parker finishes. Perfect plan. With the plan set, the crew schedules the execution for the next day. Parker returns to his hotel while the others head out to celebrate. When Parker enters his room, Zin is already there waiting, a bottle of champagne on the table. The atmosphere turns quietly romantic, until the door bursts open. Mateo and Tomas ambush them, overpower Parker, and drag him out into the freezing night. They take him to a nearby frozen river, strip him, and tie him to a pole. Shivering, Parker learns that Mateo and Tomas have tipped Lozini about his plan and are heading to him with the details. Parker tries to reason with them, warning that Lozini's men will kill everyone once the job is done. Before Mateo can respond, a gunshot rings out. Tomas drops dead. Startled, Mateo hesitates, then realizes Parker might be right. He frees Parker just as another wave of gunfire erupts. In the chaos, Parker fights back, but Mateo is shot and killed. Moments later, Zin arrives, helping Parker to safety. Lozini's phone rings. It's Parker answering one of the dead men's calls. Lozini's voice is cold and angry. The two exchange heated words before Lozini drops the twist. He already knows Parker's plan, and the robbery isn't happening tomorrow, it's happening tonight. The plan suddenly changes. Parker calls Alan Grofield, telling him the heist is happening tonight instead of tomorrow. Alan, half asleep and slightly high, snaps into focus. But the rest of the crew, Stan, Brenda, and Ed Mackie, are still partying and drunk. As soon as Grofield delivers the message, everyone scrambles to get ready. Parker and Zin rush toward the site, while Brenda and Ed quickly get into disguise as train station employees aboard the train. Alan can't find a cab, so he hijacks a motorbike to reach his post. Ed and Brenda reach the control station. Using Bosco's notes about a worker named Glasscock, who secretly works for Lozini, they use that information to gain trust and enter the control room. Meanwhile, Stan, still high, breaks into someone's truck to get to his position. The truck's owner catches him and yells at him to get out, but Stan instead speeds away, half-conscious. At the control station, Ed and Brenda take control of the train and push the throttle to maximum. Grofield barely reaches his position in time to dismantle the automatic braking system. Parker and Zin arrive at the derail point, waiting for the train, but it doesn't derail. It keeps going. Parker realizes it's not fast enough and radios Ed to increase the speed. Grofield races to the next point, trying again to disable the brakes. On the road, Stan drives the stolen truck toward the same location, and accidentally hits Grofield. Grofield, bruised but alive, keeps going and finally disables the auto brake just in time. The train hurtles forward uncontrollably and finally derails, crashing and skidding dangerously close to Parker and Zin's car. They reverse just in time, narrowly escaping the impact. When the wreck settles, the crew rushes in from all sides and begins unloading the containers, but to their shock, there's no treasure inside. Every box is empty. They realize too late, Lozini has tricked them. It's an ambush. Lozini's men suddenly open fire, bullets tearing through the wreckage. Parker and his crew dive for cover as a fierce gun battle breaks out. Just as they start to fight back, police sirens echo through the area. The situation spirals out of control as both the robbers and police close in. Parker and his team make a run for it, jumping into their car and speeding away, but a few miles down the road, their tire blows out, forcing them to stop. Within seconds, police cars surround them, lights flashing and guns drawn. Then, out of nowhere, another police car screeches onto the scene. It's Stan, driving the same patrol car he hijacked earlier. Parker signals the others, and they rush toward him under heavy fire. They pile into the stolen police car as Stan slams the gas, crashing through the blockade and racing off into the night. Everyone regroups at the motel, exhausted and bruised. The TV blares with breaking news about the failed train heist and the chaos that followed. Zin, frustrated and defeated, decides to leave, calling the mission a total loss. But Parker stops her, convincing her that it isn't over yet. Parker lays out his next move. Lozini may have sold off the jewelry, but the figurehead of the Lady of Arintero is still out there, worth a fortune on its own. That's their new target. To track it down, Parker and Grofield go to meet Kincaid, who's recovering from his injuries in a guarded building. To create a distraction, Grofield stages a dramatic scene on the rooftop, pretending to jump. The commotion draws the guards away long enough for Parker to strike. He takes down one of them and throws him off the roof. Disguised as police officers, Parker and Grofield enter Kincaid's room and take control. They demand information about the Lady of Arintero, but Kincaid, furious at being attacked again, refuses to talk. Unexpectedly, the nurse caring for him steps in and reveals what he wouldn't. The figurehead is being sold to a billionaire named Phineas Paul. Scene cuts to Phineas Paul in a meeting with Mark Cuban. Parker bursts in, forces Paul at gunpoint, shoots Mark, and kidnaps Paul. Under threat, Paul says he doesn't have the figurehead yet. It's in the outfit's private vault at Green Book, protected inside a special tungsten carbon alloy security cage that will take days to cut even after the time locks open. When Parker asks when the time locks open, Paul replies, "Tomorrow at 8 a.m., and it's Vault 1. Parker and the crew take Paul back to their warehouse and tie him to a chair. Parker and his team head to Green Book, leaving Stan behind to keep an eye on Phineas Paul. At Green Book, they stage a fake accident outside the facility to distract the guards. Zinn and Grofield overpower the distracted security and slip inside. Back at the warehouse, Stan, too high to stay alert, passes out. Taking advantage, Phineas Paul frees himself, escapes, and grabs a phone from a passing driver. He calls Lozini, revealing everything. Lozini, realizing Parker is inside Green Book, sends men to protect Paul and personally heads to Green Book with his crew. Inside the vault chamber, Parker and Grofield finish wiring explosives to the main door. With a thunderous blast, the vault bursts open. They quickly secure the Lady of Arintero, wrapping it carefully and loading it into a trailer hitched to their getaway car. Moments later, Lozini and his men arrive, only to find the vault completely empty. Furious, they chase after Parker's crew. A high-speed gunfight erupts across the Green Book Industrial Highway. Grofield drives while Parker shields the wrapped artifact, exchanging heavy fire. Zinn arrives in another car, cutting off Lozini's men and joining the fight. Despite their coordination, chaos takes over. Grofield manages to break away from pursuit, but during the escape, the trailer detaches, and the Lady of Arintero is lost. After recovering the Lady of Arintero, Lozini calls Phineas Paul, proudly declaring that the artifact is on its way. His men deliver the wrapped statue to Paul's mansion. Paul, entranced by the beauty of the Lady of Arintero, examines it closely, only to realize in shock that it's a replica, not the original. Furious, he immediately contacts President de La Paz, accusing Lozini of swapping the real piece for a fake. De La Paz, angered and feeling deceived, calls Lozini, demanding an explanation. Lozini, equally stunned, insists that Parker must have switched the artifact during the chaos. Realizing they've been played, Lozini and his men rush to Green Book to confront Parker. Meanwhile, Parker and his crew are already back inside Green Book. They target the real vault, the one containing authentic artifacts. At exactly 8 a.m., the timed security cage opens, revealing the true Lady of Arintero. The crew begins carefully preparing to extract it. As they work, Zinn and Alan notice that Stan is missing. He's been captured by Lozini's men. Moments later, Lozini himself storms into the vault with his armed crew, surrounding Parker at gunpoint. Lozini, half admiring, half threatening, tells Parker he's impressed. Parker had repainted the vault numbers and staged the previous heist as a diversion. But Parker coldly replies that he can't allow Lozini to have the Lady of Arintero. He reveals he's planted tiny explosives throughout the statue. Outside, De La Paz's men arrive, opening fire on Lozini's group. Amid the chaos, Zinn and Alan rescue Stan from captivity. As the standoff intensifies, Parker triggers the detonator. The Lady of Arintero explodes into shards, obliterating the priceless treasure. In the smoke and confusion, Parker kills Lozini and his remaining men. With the police and De La Paz's forces closing in, Parker and his team escape into the burning ruins of Green Book, leaving behind nothing but dust, betrayal, and the shattered remains of the Lady of Arintero. The next scene cuts to the motel, where Parker and his team gather one last time. Parker opens a small case, revealing the remaining jewels salvaged from the Lady of Arintero, brilliant shards worth around $2 million. The crew erupts in relief and quiet joy as Parker divides the gems evenly among them, keeping his word. Later that night, Parker heads to a hotel, where Zinn is already waiting, watching the breaking news. The broadcast exposes the deep corruption of President de La Paz, Lozini, and Phineas Paul. Zinn smiles, telling Parker that all the recovered artifacts have been safely returned to her homeland. She embraces him warmly, a gesture filled with gratitude and hidden affection. But Parker, bound by his promise to Grace Webb to avenge her husband Philly Webb, cannot let it end there. As she holds him, Parker quietly pulls the trigger. Zinn collapses silently. In the hotel lobby, Parker pauses before the television, now showing Colonel Ortiz being sworn in as the new president of the nation. A faint, knowing smirk crosses his face. Finally, Parker visits Grace Webb, handing her a small pouch of gems, her share from the Lady of Arintero, and tells her, promise kept. The film ends with Parker and Alan Grofield walking down the quiet city streets, joking casually as dawn breaks, two thieves fading back into the world, their work done.